Okay, we can go ahead and get started now. Hi everyone. Welcome to our brown bag session on logging. My name is Lisa Carnes and I'm one of the CSM managers here at Sumo Logic, and I'm going to get things kicked off here for us. If you haven't attended a brown bag session before, we launched the series earlier this year, and we have them on the second, third, and fourth Tuesday of every month. And they're designed to provide opportunities for our customers to spend time with us in a more intimate one-on-one setting to learn about key technical topics. And so today we have our session being led by one of our professional services consultants, Onur, and he's going to cover logging, but from a performance tuning perspective. And so at a high level, he's going to cover our app catalog, basics as far as what's a query and what's a syntax, performance queries best practices, and then he'll go through some real life examples as well. And please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A if you have questions, or if since we have a smaller group today, we can even cater it towards specific things that you guys are looking for help or support on. We're happy to pivot and dive into whatever is going to help you in your day-to-day. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Onur.
Thank you, Lisa. Hey, everyone. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Onur, and I'm part of the professional services team here at Sumo. Another reminder, if you can, it looks like it is disabled. Chat looks like it's disabled. So Lisa will go ahead and get that fixed. But if any questions come up, feel free to put on Q&A till we get that fixed. And if you could unmute, feel free to unmute and ask me any questions. Right. So what I want to start with is our app catalog. And the reason why I want to start with our app catalog and show you guys how to take advantage of it is these are pre-built searches, dashboards, alerts that you can take advantage of. And these are built that are meeting our best practices for query writing. And I always get to start using them before even I try to do anything custom. Right. So let me get out of this. Sorry. Let's go into our Sumo Logic, right? I'm using my training account. So if you see repeated folders in here, that's just because we use this account to get trained and train our customers, right? Our app catalog will be on the left side, right under your folders, right? Once we click on app catalog, you will see a bunch of out-of-the-box apps that includes searches, dashboards, and alerts that you could take advantage of. Now, if you have anything custom, any custom app, of course, you will not be able to see anything out of the box in this page, right? But these are, things that most of our customers use and things that you could take advantage of. So I'm going to use the Apache app as an example, just because I know logs are coming in to this account from Apache, right? What we want to do is I could go ahead and click on the app. If at any point I need to learn, audio is breaking. Lisa, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out how to enable chat. I'm sorry, you guys, bear with me. I'll figure it out.
So just to get back to it, at any point, if you choose the app or, dashboard that you want to install, there are a few things that you need to do, right? Well, number one, if you need to learn more about it, you could just go ahead and click on Learn More, and this will open up our help docs. Help docs are really, really useful. This will show you, well, number one, what is a sample log message that will be coming in from this specific source, sample query, and what is that, dashboard has for you to take advantage of. Another thing that I know, these are the dashboard samples and screenshots that you will see within our help docs. Another thing that is really, really helpful is it will walk you through it step by step on how to actually start collecting for this specific app. Let's say that you're happy with it and you have the logs that are coming in for Apache, right? What I would do, I'm going to cheat a little bit and copy my source category from here since I already have it. If I go back to my app catalog, I could just go ahead and hit add integration, right? Before you move forward, it will ask you again if you need to go ahead and see our help doc to actually start ingesting your data. Once we click next in here, we will choose which folder to include this app, right? I'm gonna choose my personal, and I created another folder in here called CS Brown Bag, just so I could find my app easier. Within the source category, we're gonna talk about metadata tags, right? That's one of the best practices we follow to have the best performance on our queries. But I will go ahead and say Labs, Apache, and a wildcard. The reason why I put this wildcard in here, again, I'm gonna talk about that in our next topic regarding metadata, but to be able to have my access and error logs at the same time, right? I don't want to focus on just one thing. I want all of my logs that are coming in from Apache to be included within this app. Once I click next, it will take few seconds. It shouldn't take minutes, depending on my connection at this point, but it will go ahead and add the app to my folder, and we'll be able to start taking advantage of it. Perfect. You will get that success green sign that comes up, and we could just go back just to make sure, right, our app is in here and I could get to work with it, right? At any point, if I want to go ahead and let's say some of the searches, right? I want to see, before I start writing any custom queries, I had a use case to see malicious URL requests, right? I could click on this query. I could see how it is written. And of course, you might still need to do some type of customization depending, to match your specific use case, but you at least have the bones of your search that you could start with. Perfect. And just a reminder, it looks like Lisa did fix the chat. Just give it a try and feel free to ask questions there. Perfect. Now, any questions on App Catalog before I move? A specific log4j, I don't think so. But at that point, let me think about it. I don't think we have specific to that, but at any point, if you have specific app that you're looking for and you don't see it in the app catalog, what we always recommend, either reach out to your customer success manager to be able to put that request, or your customer success engineer or your TAM will be able to see if they have anything they have built for specific use cases that we don't have in this app catalog. That was for your question, Andrew. And any other questions before I move forward? Couple of things that I forgot to mention. You're not limited to install these apps only once, right? You will be able to install it as many times as you like. What I've seen my customers do, they will install it, right? And they will go ahead, and especially admins, they will go ahead and start sharing it with the team. You'll be able to share it with specific roles, or you could actually share it with specific teammates or users, right? You are able to give our back, right? We edit, manage access to the specific users. And at any point, if you want to see who has access to these, you could click on see who has access. Now, one of the things that I always follow as a best practice is if you have customized a dashboard, I would definitely recommend sharing it with the team, right? Because you might have the same app name, right? Dashboard name, but you have done a lot of customization regarding the use case that your team has. We wouldn't want them to go ahead and install Apache and look at it out of the box, where you have a much better dashboard that looks at specific use cases that you have. But at any point, if you want to, delete it, reinstall it, or install it, there's no limitations, and you'll be able to use these apps as many times as required. Perfect. Now, let's move into what is, our query, our syntax. Now, I want to show this. I'm going to get out of our slideshow again in a bit, but I want to walk you through it, how we write queries, what is the syntax, and what is the best practice to follow, right? We said metadata, right? We have different types of metadata. We could use collector names, source host, and of course, source category. The reason why I'm showing source category here, this is the most customizable metadata tag that we have, right? And we could take advantage of wildcards, what I'm going to show you in my example query, to be able to look at different environments. So for example, if you're looking at your Apache logs, and instead of just specifically looking at labs, you want to look at prods, right? You could go ahead and change that. Or you want to look at your labs, prod, production and development logs at the same time. You could go ahead and use wildcard instead of labs. Oh, I'm sorry, there you go, I clicked on it, to be able to actually look at all logs that are coming from different environments. Now, our goal is to have fast searches, right? And one of the biggest thing that helps with fast searches is having keywords. The reason why we always like to use keywords in our searches is, we want to limit on what Sumo Logic brings up to our UI while we are doing searches. So if you have a use case specifically looking at Mozilla, you will be able to just add it as a keyword in here, and it would only focus on logs that are coming from Apache Access logs that has Mozilla in it, right? Couple things, that I like to mention. You don't have to use and, right? You could leave this empty and Sumo Logic will automatically understand that as you're using an and. If you put it in double quotes, it will specifically look for exactly how you have written it. If you take those double quotes out, it will actually just search for Mozilla. It doesn't matter if it's capital or not, and it will just go ahead and show you the results. Now, once we figured out, our metadata tag and the keywords that we want to use, we go into parsing, right? We have different types of parsing expressions that you could use. You could use regex, parse anchor. Parse anchor is basically taking advantage of the UI to be able to parse logs. If you have JSON logs, where I can show you, we have auto parse. So you might not even need to write a parse expression. It will just go ahead and parse things out for you. But overall, we definitely need those specific fields to be able to parse so we can make sense out of our data, right? In this example, we are parsing out our URL and status code. Right after that, we are filtering it because our use case says only show me, status codes that are matching 5, so 500s, right? We always like to aggregate, especially if you're creating a dashboard. It requires somewhat of an aggregation, right? You will be able to count, summarize, depending on your use case, you will be able to do. Now, when it comes to format, the reason why we use, well, number one, we want to sort things out by, let's say count, depending on what you're looking for. But the limit will actually have your query run much faster because it would only show you your top 3, right? You could use limit, you could use top. There are different format operators that we could go ahead and get through. Now, let's go into, right? Well, let me stop here. Any questions that come up regarding our syntax before I go in deep and show you guys where to find the metadata and what are the best practices for parsing? Alrighty, so let's go back to our UI, right? We talked about metadata, and one of the best places that you could figure out what type of logs that are coming into your account is our collection page, right? You could click on manage data, click on collection. I already have it open here, right? And I'm already looking at my Labs Apache Access logs. If I get rid of that little search, right, you'll be able to see your entire collectors. So collector name will be right there. The sources that you're ingesting from a specific collector. And as you can see, you're not limited to only one source that collector can bring. You could actually have multiple sources that are coming into that collector. Now, if I go back and look for my Labs Apache Access, right, if I click on this blue icon right next to our collector, this will automatically do a search for my collector metadata. This will show me everything that is coming in under that collector. On the left side, if you look at our auto parse fields for source category, you could see that it's coming Apache Access logs, error logs, and Nginx error logs. Perfect. Now, we talked about source category and we talked about the benefits of it, right? You'll be able to use wildcard, but I want to show that in action, right? If I click on this, I could get rid of this collector and just look at my specific source category. And one thing that I want to get rid of is double quotes, right? The reason why I got rid of double quotes, if I use a wildcard with double quotes, it will actually look for that specific, icon that you have entered into double quotes. So you might not even get anything within your search because you're using double quotes and a wildcard, right? That star. Now, if you look at this, we're only getting Apache access logs, right? We're doing our search for the last 15 minutes. But if I go ahead and change this to wildcard, now it will go ahead and show me my access and error logs at the same time. I always like to do an environment example with wildcards as well, but this account is not bringing in any other source category for Apache. But if you put the wildcard in here, you're now limited to only the end of it, right? You could actually do it in the front as well. This will go ahead and bring any type of sources any type of logs that are coming in from source categories that matches Apache, that has Apache logs. Any questions on the metadata? Let me just double check the QA. Perfect. I don't see anything. All right. So if we continue, right, one thing that I want to show you guys that helps with performance is also getting rid of the logs that you really don't need, right? And there are multiple ways to do that. Maybe for your specific use case, if you don't need those specific logs, right, that you want to do a search for, you could just go ahead and just search for what exactly you need. So for example, I want to look at, I'm going to use the Mozilla again, right? Only the logs that are coming in and that has Mozilla in it. Once I do the search, this will go ahead and show me only the logs that has Mozilla. It will highlight it for me, right? And as you can see, I did not put an and in here, but it will still see it as and. The only time you will need to do something, let's say, or, that is the time that I could actually add my statement in here and say, let's say this one. And this will go ahead and show me either Mozilla or my second keyword, and it will highlight both of them if they are showing up within the logs, but it will only highlight ones if the log has only Mozilla. The other way to get rid of the logs that you really don't need and you don't have an active use for is processing rules, right? Within the processing rules, you'll be able to, so if I just go ahead and add a filter, what this will do is, you will have an expression, a regex that matches the data or defines the message that you want to filter, right? But within the processing rule, you'll be able to exclude, include, or at any point, if you want to hash or mask a sensitive data, you'll be able to do that within processing rules as well. Now, these are happening at the time of ingest, right? So if you don't have a use case for those Mozilla logs, you will be able to exclude those. I see a hand up. Go ahead, Krishna, if you could unmute or if you want to ask a quick question. Or was that on accident? All right, we will continue to, okay, all right, sorry about that. Perfect. Let's go ahead and move on, right? So we talked about metadata, we talked about processing rules, and the next topic that we have, and while going over our syntax, was parsing, right? Now you do have the option to be able to do parsing while you're doing searches, right? I have an example here. I'm looking at my Apache logs that are coming in, and I have a regex for IP address, right? Basically, what this is doing is, hey, look for digits that are 1 to 3 and a dot and another digit, right? That is either 1 to 3 and a dot, and it will just go ahead and figure out what my IP addresses are, and it will have my field in here. And within Sumo, you'll be able to do parse anchor as well. And what we recommend is parse anchor using the UI is actually faster than using regex, right? What I mean by parse anchor is if I want to parse my IP address, and if my logs are actually having the IP address at all times at the beginning of the log and is followed by a space and a little dash, I'll be able to go ahead and highlight this, right click on it, parse selected text, choose the text that I want to parse out. Once I highlight it, I could click to extract this value, and I'm going to name this IP new, right? Just so I don't have to do IP address. One thing with this, we are not allowed to have spaces in our field names. Well, we are, but not while parsing. We could always customize it within the query. But if I wanted to have this within 2 words, I will just use an underscore, right? And once I click on submit, this will go ahead and give me my parsing statement, right? So if I go ahead and run this search, I will have my IP address that had regex, and also I have my parse anchor. And I wanted to show you guys both as an example that it will parse it out, and being able to use the UI to parse things out is just what we recommend if the logs are, if the IP address is in the same spot and followed by the same characters right after or before. Now, you might have noticed you actually see some of these fields on the left side, right? You could actually see source IP. If I click on it, you can see I'm parsing out my IP address 3 times now. Or, I see, you could see that my status code is already parsed out, but I'm not doing any type of parsing. And this is field extraction rules. These are really, really important. And it actually not only helps you write faster queries, but it helps you not to think about what to parse out or what your parsing expression will be, right? So the way that we set those up is if you go into manage data, click on logs, you will see field extraction rules tab, right? Again, this is my training account. So you're going to see a bunch of different ones that has been created. If I look at my Apache, it should come up somewhere over here. For example, this one right here, right? What we're saying is, hey, my scope is my labs Apache access logs. My parsing expression is, we're using regex. We are parsing out source IP, method, URL, status code, and the rest of the fields. So what happens once we have this created is at the time of ingest, right? While you're ingesting these logs, Sumo Logic will parse out this field, give them the field names, and you'll be able to use them at the time that you're searching it. So, you're basically skipping a line of query, right? So you do not have to write these. Let me comment these out. And once I do my search, I can come in here at any time. Let me get rid of these right here. I can come in here at any time, look at my source IP, look at my status code. The reason why these are empty, these logs are coming from my error logs, right? So you might not be able to see all of my fields that has a value in it. If you click on this number in here, it will show you the status codes that you're having is, some of them are null, but you could see that your 200 status codes approximately came within the logs, 2,600 times. Perfect. Sorry, I was looking at the questions. It looks like no questions coming up, but to show you guys how to set up, right, a field extraction rule, you could click on add rule, give it a rule name. This rule name, you will not be using it while you're doing searches. Apply that will be ingest time. The running time is specifically for JSON logs that you currently have. But as I mentioned earlier, JSON logs do get parsed automatically. The metadata, right? We will choose source category, give it a name. Let's say that we are doing Apache logs. But at this point, I want all of my Apache logs that are coming in. And one other cool thing is we do have out of the box regex or parsing expressions for some of the logs that you might be using, right? For example, Palo Alto Networks, or your CloudTrail logs or Apache Access logs. And once I click on these, I could use the template and I'll be able to parse the fields that I need to parse. These help a lot. Again, I like to mention, with your performance of the query, you will have much faster query time, taking advantage of field extraction rules, and instead of writing these parsing expressions within the query time. Let's go ahead and discard this. I don't need to add another one. Perfect. Now, the other best practice that we like to mention is partitions, right? Partitions becomes really, really important once we start ingesting a lot of data, right? So within your account, you might not see all these partitions, right? But you definitely will see Sumo Logic default, right? If you don't have any partitions created, all the logs that you ingest, right, will go into Sumo Logic default partition. The only thing that you will be able to change in here, right, within our default one is your retention date, right? Partitions not only helps with performance, but it allows you to have variable retention as well. So if you have a compliance for any reason, right, you need to keep your logs more than 30 days or less than 30 days, right? You'll be able to come in here and go ahead and make that change. If you have variable retention, right, let's say that your prod logs, you want to keep it for a year, but your dev logs or lab logs, right, you want to keep it less than a year, you'll be able to create partitions and take them out of these default partition and put it somewhere else. Now, the best example for this is, if we take a look at it, if we do a search and our source category that we're doing a search for is not within the custom partition that has been created, it will look through 1.6 terabyte worth of logs, right? But in here, if I create just like this, my labs Apache Access logs, instead of terabytes of logs, it will be megabytes, right? So your search will run much faster because it does not have to look through all this huge storage logs that are being stored within our default partition. Now, you could do, Sumo Logic has a backend mechanism that actually shows if you do any type of searches looking at these specific source categories, you do not have to specify the partition. We take care of that. It automatically knows to only look at this partition and nothing else. Now, some of the best practices within partitions. Well, number one, we do not want to overlap partitions, right? So if I have my access logs in the specific index partition, right, I do not want to create a second one that will have the same logs going into two different places, right? The biggest reason for that will be double ingesting, and you will be burning through credits when you really don't need to. The other best practices is making sure that you have the retention period correct, right? We have seen a lot of mistakes happen when instead of keeping it for a year, they keep it for much less. And that's the time that data gets lost if you don't have the retention period correctly set up in here. Any questions that are coming up on partitions? Alrighty, let's move forward. Now, our next, what we talked about, just a little recap, right? We talked about our metadata and keywords. We talked about parsing, where we actually could use field extraction rules as a best practice. The next thing that is important is scheduled views. The reason why scheduled views is our best friend, especially if you're doing a query that looks back, let's say 60 days, right? is schedule views will help us go ahead and have our query to be aggregated and show us only aggregated data, right? Let me show you guys an example. Let's say that I have this quick search, right? I'm looking at my access logs again. And what I want to do is I want to get a count of my status codes and the count of those status codes, right, per minute. Now, if we want to do the search, right, it's a fairly simple search. It won't take too long to run. If we have this for, let's say, last 30 days, it might take some time to actually have these results for us. So what we can do, instead of running this search on the go, right, running it right away and trying to figure out what it will be last 30 days, we could create a scheduled view that will do it for us automatically at all times, right? So let's go ahead and let me find my schedule search for it. Yep, there you go. So what I did in here, I give it a name, right? Status count, Apache access. It's just something quick for me to remember, and I could use this specific name to do searches. I have my query written within my account, right? Within the scheduled view. It is basically doing the same thing, counting it by time slice and a status code. Now, as you can see in here, you're able to specify your retention period as well, right? And you do get to choose your start date. So at the time of the creation, if I have a use case where I want to go back, let's say, from January of 2023, and I want to start having my data within my schedule search to be aggregated since then, I'll be able to do that, right? And this way, you don't wait and for your query to run and have the results shown to you. You'll be able to just go ahead and see it within your scheduled view. Now, since I already have it created, right? What I can do, I could click on this open search, right? The blue icon, and this will go ahead and give me my metadata tag view. This will show me the same thing that I was looking at, but it will go back depending on the day that I started, right? I could, let's see, 14 days ago, and I'll be able to see all of my views that are coming in from there. And I could do any type of aggregation that are coming in to my scheduled view. Now, some of the best practices with scheduled view will be, we always want to use aggregates, right? We need to do some type of count or some type of aggregation to be able to have fast results. There are two reasons why I always push for aggregates. One, if you don't aggregate the data, it will count for your retention, for your storage, right? So some credits will be burned. As long as you have any type of aggregation, it will not see it as ingest. It will not see it as, your credits will not be burning through. And number two, again, our topic of the day, performance. It will just run much faster. Any questions on the scheduled view as well? Any specific examples or use cases that I could help you guys out with? Perfect. So just to recap, as we are coming towards an end to our discussion, right? What we talked about for performance is, well, number one, let me go back to this slideshow. What we really, really care about, and I have it in this example as well, is number one, we need to have a metadata tag. We want to make sure we limit our searches, and we do not want to see everything that is coming into Sumo for a specific use case, right? And take advantage of keywords to drop our logs that are being shown to us as well. And the second thing is using parsing, right? The best way to do that is field extraction rules. And the best way that will help you out for your performance is creating field extraction rules that you will get to use day to day, right? And if not, if it's a specific use case that you're not going to use those fields all the time, taking advantage of parse anchor. In this specific example, we are using JSON. As I mentioned earlier, JSON, you do not have to parse it out within your query. It will have auto parse. But if at any point you really need to change the name or you don't want to use auto parse, you will be able to use the UI to parse those as well. It looks like Andrew has a quick question. Let me go ahead and take a look at it. For email, yes, we can. So for, it could be email, it could be IP address, it could be phone numbers, right? The only thing that we will need to figure out for a field extraction rule is the regex for it, right? So at any point, if you could create that regex for an email, it could be, follow before the @ sign and after the @ sign, following the, usually what I do, let me go ahead and show you guys. What I like to use anytime I'm creating a field extraction rule or any type of parsing is I like to go in regex 101 and be able to have my string in here. So it could be, let's say, owner, at sumologic.com. And I want to be able to figure out what will my regex be for this specific email that I'm looking for or field, right? And, this will help me write my regex. Now, you're not limited, right? Not only regex, the only reason why I said regex is it will be useful for while we're creating an FER to use regex so we could look at all the logs and not a specific parse anchor, right? But as long as you figure out that regex expression, it will go ahead and work. And we do have some regex expressions within our docs that you could take advantage of that will help you out. Hopefully that was helpful, Andrew. I for sure do not on this account. I could look at my personal account right after this and send you an email, and maybe we could discuss it a little further, Andrew. What do you think? Perfect. Any other questions? That was actually a great question, Andrew. Any other questions regarding field extraction rules, partitions, schedule views that will help you out throughout your query writing and throughout your experience within Sumo? Great. If there are no questions, that will be all from our session today. As always, feel free to reach out to us if any questions that come up right after this session. I'll be happy to meet and help you guys out as much as we can.
And I'll
Please.
be sure
Mhm.
to, I'll get the recording out for you guys as well, since some of the participants had a choppy audio connection. Great. Okay. Well, then I'll stop the recording. Thank you all for attending, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.